everybody. Welcome to another edition of What's Going On. I'm your host, Tom D'Ambra. As always, we are very thankful you take the time from your busy day to view our program. I would like to start out once again by thanking the staff here at KATV in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. They have their hands full right now with everything that's going on, and I'd like to thank them very, very much for making the extra effort that we're able to broadcast to you. My friends, we have so much information. I already know I'm not going to be able to get this done in the short time we have with you, so let's jump right into it. Let's start out with a quote from David Rockefeller. "We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis." Let's read that again. We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis. Let's start out with a quote from Heinz Kissinger. You know him as Henry. "It is not a matter of what's true that counts, only what is perceived to be true." As Ben Franklin taught us, perception is reality. Okay, my friends, we had confirmed to you that the DOD, from various DOD sources, that the military was setting up mass quarantine camps in the United States. And we mentioned Utah and Alabama that were people on the ground confirmed had opened. And that program has been extended. Now, what I found very, very interesting is that a program that we wrote to you about, we actually talked to you about, has been implemented. If you remember, we spoke to you about a program called the Joint Task Force National Capital Region, JTF-NCR. Okay, that's the acronym, JTF-NCR. N is in November. And we reported to you roughly about 4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago now, that this organization was activated. And what it is the 106th Aviation Regiment out of Illinois. Now, I did some research on this, and what's very interesting to me is that this unit is under Title 10 and not Title 32. So you're saying, what are you talking about? Folks, this unit is under direct jurisdiction of the executive branch and the Secretary of Defense. Title 32, where all other National Guard units are under gubernatorial control. This unit is under Title 10, which is, again, directly involved with the Secretary of Defense and President Trump. Well, we told you that it was activated. Well, as of 5 days ago now, this unit is in operation. Joint Task Force National Capital Region is 10,000 plus strong, and is, again, not only activated, is now in operation through a special sequester by the Secretary of Defense. Now, when you read this and you go along with what their duties are, none of their duties have to do with COVID-19 support duties. None of them. All of their duties have to do with, not limited to, and I'm reading this verbatim now, with evacuating officials, this is their own writing, let me just read this right over, including but not limited to evacuating officials, lawmakers, and members of the judiciary boards. The 106th Aviation Regiment out of Illinois has been deployed to the Capitol. Their assignment on this duty is to enforce, listen to folks, this is their writings, not mine. They're deployed to the Capitol. Assignment: to enforce martial law and evacuate lawmakers and top government officials under Title 10 orders. The operation is called JEEP, Joint Emergency Evacuation Plan, Highly Classified Operations and Effective Readiness. The three operations names, now these operation names we brought to you, again, whether it was 6 or 8 weeks ago, are Octagon, Freejack, and Zodiac. And the whole thing is to move the base of COG, Continuity of Government, out of Washington to Colorado and Camp David and other places. So this unit is now not only active, it's in operation. We also reported to you that, very interestingly enough, for the last, almost 40 days now, Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado has been locked down. What's being reported is that the members of the military staff there is not even allowed out to see their families. My friends, this is very concerning to me. Very concerning. There is a reason why this is going on. Now, we know that this COVID-19 is man-made. Dr. Francis Boyle, who wrote the bioweapons treaty, signed by both the House and the Senate and President Bush, we know, and from him and many others now, that this was a man-made bio-offensive weapon with a delivery system, the same delivery system of HIV and AIDS, which was developed in Fort Detrick, Maryland. We know that a professor named Lieber was on the take with the Chinese, to another doctor from the Chinese, and Lieber has now been arrested and the Chinaman has been arrested. We know that this was released at the Wuhan Biosafety Lab, 4th level. Wuhan, as we've reported to you, is the Fort Detrick of China. We know that China, when this was going on, stopped all domestic flights in country in China, but allowed everybody to spread this throughout the world. We know the people that you see on TV who are telling you you should be locked down, basically as the Attorney General Barr, who I don't trust at all, Mr. Rob Johnson. And if you don't know why I'm saying that, you have to go back and watch one of our shows, because that was his name when he was the direct liaison with the CIA Director Casey and all the drug running that took place out of Mena, Arkansas. That's qualified in many books. So we know that these people, Fauci and Bricks is not even a doctor. She lost her license as an MD in 2014. We know that Fauci and Bricks both signed off on the development and the transferring of COVID-19. They had to. She was in charge of infectious diseases. He was in charge of the National Institute of Health. That couldn't have happened without their signature. It couldn't have been developed without their signature. It couldn't have been transferred without their signature. We know that both of these people are on Bill and Melinda Gates' different boards that we have reported to you months ago. We laid it all out for you. And that they have both received literally millions and millions of dollars individually and over $1 billion collectively with the groups that they are affiliated with. They are deep staters. We know that Fauci, we read the dates to you, as even in February, was coming out and saying that, hey, this is nothing the American people have to worry about. But then he goes on TV 4 weeks later and tells the American public that Trump's responsible and Trump was delayed in his reactions. So, what's going on here, folks? We all know now that there is a them. We know now that the New World Order, even though if you've been watching this program for all the year, you know, we're coming up on our 400th show right around the corner. And we have laid out to you from all the symbology, from the history, from all the documentation, from all the statements, from all the people who tried to fight this, all the people who tried to warn the American people, what the Federal Reserve is, what they're not, the lack of money system in this country, why you have a birth certificate, how you've been declared the enemy by the United States government. Trading with the Enemies Act 1933, a definition of enemy is what, folks? You've heard me say it 1,000 times in this program. Is what? The definition of enemy from the congressional record is citizens of the United States or those under the jurisdiction of the United States. You, myself, have been declared the enemy of the United States government, which is nothing but an insolvent corporation answering to its creditors, the bankers. And we've explained to you this Hegelian dialectic. Crisis, reaction, solution. Well, they created this crisis. And the very same people who financed and created this crisis are now using the very same people, the front men, the puppets that you're allowed to see on the stage of the globe, are using them, the people who manifested this and delivered this and created this whole thing, to tell you that basically you're under house arrest. But that's just for me and you. As we know, the governor of Virginia, Coon Man, Blackface, is done what? He's taking weekend trips to his beach house in Dare County, North Carolina. So he's breaking his own executive orders that he put into place that you will be penalized for if you break them. He is breaking North Carolina's executive orders that were put into place. He is breaking Dare County's executive orders that were put into place. Because I went and looked it up. In Dare County, North Carolina, residents only. Residents only. You think he'll get in trouble? Do you think he'll be fined? Do you think he'll be arrested? Do you think he'll be publicly humiliated? No. It's the just us system, my friends. The laws are meant to keep the little people little. So you have to ask yourself, is there a real threat here? So I did some research. And I'm going to read every state's casualties, and I'm going to be comparing for you the COVID-19 deaths and the 2018 influenza or flu deaths. Now, before we do this, I want to read for you something else. Okay? Right now, I had read to you about the what was going on with regards to the CDC program, where they were basically not having to confirm that the person died from COVID-19. So I wrote down verbatim the document from the CDC. And I want to read this to you. Now, this is a lot of bureaucratic-ease language. But before I read this to you, I want you to understand something. If a hospital puts somebody on a respirator, they get 30, and it's COVID-19, click, click, they get $39,000, the hospital gets $39,000. If somebody treats somebody with COVID-19, click, click, they get between $12,000 and $13,000 depending on geographically and demographics where they are. So also keep in mind that these hospitals operate under the license and permission of these very same agencies. Okay? So the hospitals are getting financial rewards and they're being mandated without any proof. And if you think I don't make this stuff up, folks, let me read this to you. This is CDC's language. This is the document I was telling you about. Code only confirmed cases. Code only a confirmed diagnosis of the 2019 novel coronavirus disease as documented by the provider. Now listen to this. Documentation of a positive COVID-19 test results or a presumptive COVID-19 test results. Section 2H. Confirmation does not require documentation of the type of test performed. The provider's documentation that the individual has COVID-19 is sufficient. Presumptive positive COVID-19 test should be coded as confirmed. This is bureaucratic ease. Presumptive positive COVID-19 test should be coded as confirmed. Now, this is the statement from the CDC spokesman. We think it is coronavirus, and even if we are not sure, report it as coronavirus. Do you understand what they're saying here? That even the numbers that I'm about to read to you that I got from the CDC are fabricated when it comes to the actual deaths of COVID-19. In California, 70% of the cases are in nursing homes. In other states, 40% are in prisons and nursing homes. Everyone that has died from COVID-19 had prior medical history. Everybody. There has not been one individual who was healthy with no pertinent medical history that has died from COVID-19. This disease is affecting the infirm. It also, now you're going to think I'm really nuts, but this is their own writing. It is also affecting the testicles of males drastically. Folks, this is a sterility attack also, which makes perfect sense because these people are pure eugenists. They did sterility vaccines. They've done sterility disease. This is part of their soft kill program. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to get into that too deep because then I have to get into the 5G relationships here with this disease. And I've decided I'm not going to do that on this show for the sake of time, but next week I'm going to get into the correlations and relationships between 5G and this disease. And what was the first city in the world that went completely on 5G activation? First one in the entire world? Wuhan, China. Let's read this again. Presumptive positive COVID-19 test should be coded as confirmed. Presumptive. They're presuming. Now, when you go along with other data, you understand that all of a sudden there's this massive reduction in people dying from cardiac disease, pulmonary disease, other diseases. Why is there a big reduction all of a sudden in these other diseases causing death? Because of this presumption document that the hospitals are making thousands of dollars on, excuse me, and taking orders from the people they get permission to operate with. Their licenses. You're starting to see through the fog here? Now, I am going to read every state, and here's the reason why. because this show is broadcast on YouTube throughout the world, and I make a lot of contacts with people. I spoke to a person this morning from Florida who watches the show. He informed me you cannot find a dozen eggs in Florida, and you cannot find flour in Florida. And that in his neighborhood, milk is being rationed to 1 gallon per visit, while the farmers are throwing 3.5 million gallons to the ground every day. Excuse me. So let's get into this. Okay. Deaths from COVID-19 and the 2008 influenza deaths. Texas, 318 dead from COVID-19, 3,516 dead from the flu. California, 767 dead from COVID-19, 6,917 from the flu. Florida, 571 dead COVID-19, 3,091 dead from the flu. Alabama, 110 dead from the COVID-19, 1,258 dead from the flu. Illinois, 868 dead COVID-19, 2,564 dead from the flu. Ohio, 324 dead COVID-19, 2,395 dead from the flu. South Dakota, 6 dead from COVID-19, 245 dead from the flu. Tennessee, 124 dead from COVID-19, 1,646 dead from the flu. West Virginia, 9 dead COVID-19, 539 dead from the flu. Wyoming, 1 dead COVID-19, 128 dead from the flu. Mississippi, 111 dead COVID-19, 910 dead from the flu. Missouri, 142 dead from COVID-19, 1,477 dead from the flu. Kansas, 69 dead from COVID-19, 630 dead from the flu. Indiana, 387 dead from COVID-19, 1,118 dead from the flu. Idaho, 33 dead from COVID-19, 235 dead from the flu. Hawaii, 9 dead from COVID-19, 542 dead from the flu. Louisiana, 1,013 dead from COVID-19, 824 from the flu. Arizona, 131 dead COVID-19, 1,116 dead from the flu. Pennsylvania, 696 dead from COVID-19, 2,887 dead from the flu. North Carolina, 108 dead from COVID-19, 2,064 dead from the flu. Wisconsin, 170 dead from COVID-19, 1,075 dead from the flu. Oregon, 55 dead from COVID-19, 530 dead from the flu. Iowa, 49 dead from COVID-19, 697 dead from the flu. Washington State, 523 dead from COVID-19, one of the hardest hit states, 930 dead from the flu. Virginia, 154 dead COVID-19, 1,283 dead from the flu. Oregon, 55 dead COVID-19, 830 dead from the flu. New York, 10,834 dead from COVID-19, 4,749 dead from the flu. Michigan, 1,768 dead from COVID-19, 1,869 dead from the flu. New Jersey, 2,805 dead from COVID-19, 1,465 dead from the flu. Rhode Island, 80 dead from COVID-19, 192 dead from the flu. Maryland, 302 dead COVID-19, 973 dead from the flu. New Hampshire, 27 dead COVID-19, 265 dead from the flu. Vermont, 29 dead COVID-19, 87 dead from the flu. Alaska, 9 dead COVID-19, 68 dead from the flu. Arkansas, 32 dead from COVID-19, 670 dead from the flu. Oklahoma, 108 dead COVID-19, 809 dead from the flu. Massachusetts, 957 dead from COVID-19, 1,441 dead from the flu. Georgia, 501 dead COVID-19, 1,530 dead from the flu. Connecticut, 671 dead COVID-19, 757 dead from the flu. Kentucky, 115 dead COVID-19, 969 dead from the flu. Minnesota, 79 dead COVID-19, 698 dead from the flu. North Dakota, 9 dead from COVID-19, 152 dead from the flu. Nevada, 120 dead COVID-19, 527 dead from the flu. Utah, 19 dead from the flu, 353 dead from, I apologize, Utah, 19 dead from COVID-19 and 353 dead from the flu. New Mexico, 31 dead COVID-19, 365 dead from the flu. South Carolina, 97 dead from COVID-19, 882 dead from the flu. Delaware, 43 dead from COVID-19, 167 dead from the flu. Nebraska, 18 dead from COVID-19, 394 dead from the flu. Montana, 7 dead from COVID-19, 152 dead from the flu. In the state of Maine, 20 dead from COVID-19, 312 dead from the flu. And finally, Colorado, 329 dead from COVID-19, 568 dead from the flu. Folks, how come we haven't shut the globe down for all the influenza deaths? And as I'm reading this COVID-19 death numbers to you, I want you to remember presumptive qualifications by the CDC mandates to these hospitals. And not only that, did you see what the United Nations reported yesterday? You didn't see that? They estimate that because of the global lockdown, that 30 million people are going to die from starvation. Folks, the base of good health is clean water and nutrition. Think of this, my friends. These COVID deaths numbers have all been bumped out by mandates by the CDC and financial rewards to the hospitals. And these hospitals know if they go against the CDC, they're not going to get their license to operate renewed. They know this. And now the United Nations is predicting 30 million deaths because of this global lockdown just to starvation. You know, Sweden didn't have any shutdowns. And they have an incredibly high migration rate. Matter of fact, they've lost a lot of their country. And they've been very successful in battling this. Very successful. Listen to this quote from Jeffrey Robinson. I think this is a transparent attempt to grab power and make it easier for the government to yield its authority. Think of that. Now, this is the ACLU saying this. I think this is a transparent attempt to grab power and make it easier for the government to yield its authority. Folks, I went to the government website and I read the 3 phases of reopening the economy. And I can tell you, we're not going back to normal. We're not. And how do I know this? Because even phase 3, which is supposedly the final phase, has restrictions and obligations in it. We're not going back to pre-COVID-19. The global transformation that David Rockefeller is now taking place in front of your eyes. You are living in history will show that you are living in the greatest false flag operation ever placed upon the world. You think 9/11 was a big false flag? Well, it was. It got us to go to war and conquer 7 countries. It got us to give up our liberties. It got us to implement more taxation. It got the bankers very rich and controlled through more debt. It got them to prosper while we bled. It was big, quite successful. Not to mention, the World Trade Towers were losing millions of dollars every year, and they had to spend, well, I forget the number, what was it, $1.4 billion, I think they estimated it would cost to remove all the asbestos in them buildings? Did anybody get penalized for allowing 9/11 to happen? No. What did every agency get? Their budgets increased because they didn't have enough money. They didn't have the tools. Don't you know? They needed more money. They needed to restrict your liberties for your own good, for your own protection. Yep, Governor Ralph Northam is going back and forth from Virginia to North Carolina, breaking and violating 3 sets of laws. Isn't that something? You know, folks, the World Health Organization and the CDC, they should not only mandate that we wear masks, they might as well mandate that we all wear freaking blindfolds. Might as well wear blindfolds with our mask, if you cannot see what this is all about. This is nothing but a power grab. And this is going to come in stages. There's something, I don't make predictions on this show, although I did about 6 months ago, and I've had other people make comment to me that I ought to not just give information the way I do and read, but I should put my own input in more because I am on. And I'm not bragging about myself, folks. I study. Folks, I'm not a smart guy, but I know how to read. They put this in your face. Study their white papers, study the congressional records, study the legislative pages. It's all there to be found. Event 201 that Bill Gates did through CEPA in October of 2019 laid out what they were going to do, even used the word coronavirus. The only thing wrong is that they were estimating 65 million people die. Well, this isn't over. This is not over. This has just begun. And think about us in a society. Everybody is suspicious now of everybody else. Nobody wants to shake hands. Nobody can give a hug. Hell, I know parents that won't hug their own children now. It's unbelievable. Everybody is becoming a suspect to each other. They're dividing us at the most finest point of our society, which is relationship. They're dividing us. It's perfect. It's perfect. And yet, we're going to get a $1,200 check that is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars down the road paying the interest of the bankers who gave permission to print it. And here's another bailout of $4.4 trillion to the bankers again. They just got a big one in 2008, which we don't know where all the money went yet. This is perfect. And now you've got this joint task force, and now you've got Bill Gates talking about what? Bill Gates is not a doctor. Bill Gates has no college education. Bill Gates is a front stage puppet for you to see. His mother worked for Thomas Watson. She was very instrumental in setting up the whole thing with the Third Reich. She was on the board. Bill Gates' father was one of the founding members and a board member of Planned Parenthood. Spoke openly about population reduction. But you think Bill Gates opened up Apple and Microsoft in his garage. He was placed there. He was placed there. Look at all the times he's come out and said, we feel that vaccines are the best population control avenue. His TED Talks, his public writings, his public speeches. We've showed them to you on this show. And now he's on every TV commercial. You know, last night was the first time in, I don't know, maybe a year that I actually sat down and watched what you would consider mainstream TV. And I saw commercials with Fauci. I saw commercials with Bricks telling you got to be locked down. These are the people who developed, controlled, and implemented this throughout the world and to China. It couldn't have happened, my friends, without their direct signatures and approval. And they have received, as we reported to you, millions and millions of dollars from Bill Gates and his like. Millions. And now, with this vaccine program, they want to do what? Have a digital marker, to use their words, a digital marker. Vanicast collects data through cell phones to track trends on where people are going. We already know that. We have reported that to you over the years. But listen to Peter Ashdown, their CEO. I'd say 99% of Americans don't realize how closely they are being tracked. Location tracing and collection is very common, especially in relation to smartphones and apps in smartphones. So now we have, instead of doing it with your smartphone or your phones, now we have this biometric digital mark, which they're going to scan you from police cars. The technology is already here. Already here. They're not going to have to come up to you and scan you. They're biometrics, my friends. Everybody's biometrics is different from everybody else. We all have our individual markers. They're calling it a digital mark. I've heard Bill Gates talk about a tattoo, but it's a mark. In their journals, they call it a digital mark. Now, do you remember that I want to say 2 or 3 months ago, we talked to you about the Defense Forensic and Biometric Agency. And it was part of a system called the ABIS, Automated Biometric Information System. Does that make you feel all warm and fuzzy? Because you know why they developed this months ago? So they can implement it today. You think this just happens? You just think, oh, this just happens to be, this is a coincidence. Really? The DFBA, my friends, the Defense Forensic and Biometric Agency, is activated in operation. The system, ABIS, Automated Biometric Information System, is up and activated. The JTF-NCI, Joint Task Force National Capital Region, that we just talked about, Operation Octagon, Free Jack, and Zodiac, under Title 10, not Title 32, are in operation. Now, what did Event 201 that Bill Gates put together in October 2019 call for? An 18-month quarantine. Now, the World Health Chief Tedros Adhanom, I have a hard time with this guy's name, Ghebreyesus, and the regional director of the Pacific, Western Pacific, said, listen to this. Listen to this, my friends. People will need to get used to a new way of life due to the coronavirus. Ordinary people's lives and health systems will both need to adapt because of the global pandemic. Notice he said ordinary people. Not the beautiful people. Not the elites. Not the governor of Virginia who's breaking 3 sets of laws in 2 different states, including his own laws that he put into place so he can go to his vacation home. Not the beautiful people. The ordinary people. The ordinary people. That's you and I, folks. We're the useless eaters. And this is all done on presumptive, positive conclusions. COVID-19 deaths are up here, but all of a sudden, heart attacks and pulmonary deaths are way, way below average. Can you put that together? Listen to this other quote from the World Health Chief. Food rationing will be a new reality for buyers once spoiled by choice. And we see that happening, don't we? I think I mentioned to you about a viewer I spoke to, he called me this morning from Florida. He said, Tom, you need to just openly speak more instead of just reading information to us. He says, because you're right on. I told you 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, that I smelled a false flag coming because they, for the first time in my lifetime, the bankers, the globalists, had Centay used against them. They were reacting to us. The Brexit, all the rebellion going on throughout the country, Trump being elected, Pisano down in Brazil, all these things they had to put an end to. And what's the best way to do it? With the use of the Hegelian dialectic, create a crisis, put you in a state of fear, and you will go along with the ultimate goal, which was their perceived solution. Folks, this is a brilliant move. They have bypassed 430 million guns that are in this country without a shot fired. They've completely bypassed them. They've made them ineffective because the people are in a state of fear. They believe this insolvent corporation, USA Incorporated, which is answering to the creditors, is looking out in a benevolent manner for the people. It's beautiful. And they've painted Trump, whether he's an elaborate ruse or the real thing, they've painted him into a corner. Because if he releases the restrictions, which he's not going to, Phase 3 has restrictions. Phase 3 has obligations. I've read it. Let me read the statement again. People will need to get used to a new way of life due to the coronavirus. Ordinary people's lives and health systems will both need to adapt because of the global pandemic. Ordinary people. As I said, not them, us. Folks, the numbers speak for themselves and they're exaggerated. Supreme Court Justice William Douglas wrote, "The right to travel is part of the liberty of which the citizen cannot be deprived of without due process of law under the Fifth Amendment." Excuse me. Freedom of movement across frontiers in either direction and inside frontiers as well was a part of our heritage. Travel abroad, like travel within a country, may be necessary for a livelihood. It may be as close to the heart of the individual as the choice of what he eats, wears, or reads. Freedom of movement is basic in our scheme of values. Excuse me. And then you have Jeffrey Robinson from the ACLU of all organizations come out and says, "I think this is a transparent attempt to grab power and make it easier for the government to yield its authority." So we've got this Hegelian dialectic in full use, crisis reaction solution. And there's another system that we've spoken to you about called the Cloward and Piven, written by two professors at Columbia University. And the Cloward and Piven is a system where you overload a system on what it is based on. For instance, say unemployment. Okay, unemployment has X amount of funds to cover an average of unemployment claims. But if you overload that system on its mission criteria, it fails. Because it doesn't have the resource to absorb the load, the burden. Now we have 22 million Americans, the most in the history of our country, have filed for unemployment in the last 3 weeks. 22 million. Do you think the system's a little overwhelmed on what its mission is supposed to be? I'll bet you it is. Matter of fact, I know it is. So, if the numbers are a facade, and even historical data, 3.5 times the amount of people have died from just the flu, what do we know about suicide rates? We know that on average, for every 1% hike in unemployment, anywhere from 12 to 50,000 people commit suicide. It depends a lot on, it's such a wide variety because it depends a lot on demographics. Educational demographics, somebody doesn't have a lower standard of education, can't go out and get as many opportunities as someone who has a higher level of education, for example. So what we're finding out is that if you go with these numbers, with historical data, and 22 million people have filed for unemployment, you take them numbers into account and that spike, my friends, that means on average 800,000 people are going to commit suicide directly because of this global lockdown, going by historical data. 800,000. Folks, the remedy, the cure for the ordinary people is worse than the disease, than the illness. I won't give you medical advice, but you know what? You know why Rome was so healthy? And then we went into the plague after Rome collapsed? Because they had good food. They had the best clean water in that time in the modern world. Folks, if you keep your immune system up and you stay healthy, this illness is not even a matter of concern for you. Not at all. Now, personally, I'm not telling you what I do personally. I take vitamin C. I take zinc. I take iodine. I take colloidal silver. I take D3 and K2 to keep my immune system up. I worked in EMS and fire, EMS particularly, for decades. And I was always around sick people. I was very, 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 very seldom sick. I drink half my body weight in ounces of water every 24 hours. So let's say, just for easy numbers, a person weighs 150 pounds. Well, guess what? You should be drinking 75. That's what I do. I'm not giving advice. I would drink 75 ounces of water a day. A little over half gallon of clean water. Not water that they've poisoned with all the toxins, neurotoxins they put in our water. Clean water. So folks, the numbers are a facade. The disease is man-made, implemented, and transferred by people who are telling you that you should be on house arrest. And the beautiful people are telling you that us ordinary people will need to get used of a new way of life due to this crisis that they created and implemented and you and I financed. Folks, this is Farmageddon with a PH, not an F. This is Farmageddon. They are bringing us down the road. There's another, I'm going to start doing this a little bit more, but I know that there is another event or series of events coming, my friends. And I've got pages here about, I call them Fastest Fauci and his NIH panel recommendations. Hydroxychloroquine. No, he says you shouldn't take that, even though every doctor that's used it has had some at 100% recovery rates from COVID-19. My friends, we are very thankful that you take the time from your busy day to view our program. We always close in asking you to seek truth, obtain knowledge, manifest kindness to your fellow man, and we always close in reminding you that your government is your responsibility. And we thank you for watching.
Got to read between the lines. Got to read between the lines. Well, the truth is very simple, very hard to find. line.